The stars were silent, they always were. But on this day their silence felt heavy, like the quiet after a funeral. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eastern Star, and stared at His hands were clasped behind his back. His face showed nothing. But inside, something was breaking. Where 7 Colony once floated in space, there was now only debris, twisted metal, burning fragments, the remains of 7 million lives scattered across the void like forgotten dreams. Admiral, his second officer said quietly, "We are detecting emergency beacon signals. Very few, maybe 200. 200 out of 7 million. Park nodded slowly. Send rescue shuttles, find everyone we can. He watched his crew move quickly, efficiently. They were good soldiers. They followed orders. They did their duty. But he could see it in their eyes, the same horror that was eating at his own heart. 12 hours ago, 7 had been alive. Children had gone to school. Workers had reported to the agricultural domes. Families had eaten breakfast together, complained about small things, made plans for the weekend. Now they were all gone. The Galactic Council had sent their fleet without warning. No declaration of war. No ultimatum. Just death falling from the sky like rain on a summer day. Park thought of his sister. She had been a teacher on 7. She taught young children how to read, how to write, how to dream of the stars. She had sent him a message just 2 days ago, telling him about a student who had drawn a picture of a spaceship and said he wanted to be an admiral, just like her brother. That child was dead now, so was. Park did not cry. He had forgotten how. But something cold and hard settled in his chest, something that felt like it would never go away. 3 days later, the Council's ambassador arrived on Earth. His name was Prime Commander, and he was not like humans at all. He stood 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and a head like an insect. His eyes were black and shiny, showing no emotion. His voice buzzed when he spoke, translated by machines into human words. He stood in the Great Hall of the United Earth Assembly, surrounded by human leaders. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, admirals, they all watched him with barely hidden rage, but did not care about their feelings. To him, humans were small, weak, unimportant. The Galactic Council has made its decision, he announced. The species known as humanity has grown too aggressive, too dangerous. You expand too quickly. You breed too fast. You do not know your place in the natural order. He paused, letting his words sink in. The destruction of your colony was necessary. It was a lesson. We hope you have learned from it. A murmur went through the crowd. Some people shouted in anger. Security officers stepped forward, hands on weapons, but continued unconcerned. The Council offers humanity a choice. Surrender your military vessels. Dismantle your defense systems. Accept protected species status under Council oversight. Do this, and you will be allowed to live. Refuse and more lessons will follow. Protected species status. Everyone knew what that meant. Humans would become slaves in all but name. Their children would be taken for labor. Their resources would be harvested. Their future would belong to others. Spread his 4 arms in a gesture that might have been meant to look generous. You have 30 standard days to decide. Choose wisely. Then he turned and walked out, his guards following behind him. In a small room beneath the assembly hall, an old man watched the broadcast on a screen. His name was, and he was 73 years old. His hair was white. His face was lined with decades of hard decisions. His eyes were tired but sharp. He was the Supreme Commander of United Earth's Armed Forces. He had fought in 3 interstellar wars. He had buried friends, colleagues, and soldiers too young to die. He had seen the best and worst of humanity. And now he watched an alien tell his species to surrender or die. His aide, a young captain named Lee, stood beside him. She was shaking with anger. "Sir, we cannot accept this. We have to fight back. We have to." Captain said quietly. She stopped. The old general turned off the screen. For a long moment he said nothing. He just stood there thinking, remembering. He thought about the reports from 7. The council ships had arrived at dawn local time. They had started bombing immediately. The colony's defense grid had been overwhelmed in minutes. Civilian transports had tried to flee, but the council ships had destroyed them too. No survivors, no mercy. The council wanted humanity to rage, to attack blindly, to give them an excuse for complete extermination. Understood this. He had fought many enemies in his long life, and he knew how they thought. The council was old, powerful, arrogant. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had crushed countless species who dared to challenge them. They expected humans to be like all the others, angry, stupid, predictable. Smiled, it was a small smile, cold and dangerous. "Captain Lee," he said. "Yes, sir." "Convene the War Council. All 7 commanders, doctor from the department, commander from Special Operations." Lee nodded quickly. "Yes, sir, when?" "Now." She hurried away to make the arrangements. Walked to the window and looked out at the night sky. Somewhere out there among those stars, the council was waiting, watching, expecting humanity to make a mistake. They would be disappointed. The old general had spent his entire life studying war. He knew every tactic, every strategy, every trick that had ever been used in human history. But more importantly, he understood something that the council did not. War was not just about weapons and ships and soldiers. It was about ideas, about hope, about the stories people told themselves when everything seemed lost. The council had made a terrible mistake at 7. They thought they were teaching humanity a lesson in fear. Instead, they had given humanity something far more dangerous. A reason to remember who they really were. Turned away from the window and began walking toward the War Council chamber. His steps were slow but steady. His mind was already working on plans, possibilities, futures. The galaxy thought humanity was beaten, broken, finished. They had no idea what was coming. The Geneva bunker was built 3 kilometers beneath the Alps. It was designed to survive anything: nuclear war, asteroid impacts, even orbital bombardment. For 200 years it had waited in darkness, hoping it would never be needed. Now it was full of light and voices. 7 people sat around a circular table made of dark wood. They were the highest-ranking military officers in human history, commanding fleets and armies that stretched across dozens of star systems. Behind them stood aides, advisors, and guards. Screens on the walls showed maps of the galaxy, troop positions, fleet movements. At the head of the table sat General. He had not slept in 3 days. His uniform was wrinkled, but his eyes were clear and focused. "Thank you all for coming," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I know you are all angry. I know you want revenge. I want it too." Admiral Park slammed his fist on the table. "Then let us take it. I have 47 warships ready to move. We can strike at their supply lines, their fuel depots there." "And then what?" asked quietly. Park stared at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean what happens next. We destroy some supply ships, we kill some of their soldiers, and then we keep fighting. Against 12 species, against fleets that outnumber us 100 to 1. The old general shook his head slowly. "Admiral, I understand your pain. Your sister died at 7. I grieve with you, but if we attack now, we lose everything." A woman at the far end of the table spoke up. Her name was Doctor, and she was humanity's leading expert on alien civilizations. She was not a soldier, but had insisted she be present. "The general is correct," she said. "I have studied the council for 20 years. They have done this before, dozens of times. A young species rises, grows powerful, challenges their authority. The council destroys one of their colonies, waits for them to attack, then uses that attack as justification for complete extermination. It is their standard procedure." So we just surrender. Another officer, Vice Admiral No, looked disgusted. We let them win. No stood up and walked to one of the wall screens. He pressed a button and the map changed. We do something they have never seen before. We refuse to play their game. He pointed to different parts of the galaxy. The Council rules through fear. They convince other species that resistance is impossible, that submission is the only option. But their empire is not as strong as it looks. Doctor nodded. There are 17 species currently under Council control who have shown signs of rebellion. The worker casts on 4, the people, many others. They hate the Council, but they are afraid to act alone. They need hope, said. They need to see that the Council can be challenged. Not with weapons, we would lose that fight, but with something stronger. Lieutenant General, commander of psychological operations, leaned forward. She was a small woman with sharp features and even sharper intelligence. You want to start a propaganda campaign. I want to start a revolution, returned to his seat. Not with guns and bombs, with truth. He pressed another button and the screen showed footage. The room went silent as they watched, Council ships bombing civilian transports, children's emergency signals being ignored, medical facilities being destroyed while patients screamed inside. This is what really happened at 7, said. The Council told the galaxy that we attacked first, that we were the aggressors, but we have proof. Every ship, every drone, every satellite in the system recorded everything. Admiral Park stared at the footage. His jaw was tight, his eyes were wet. My sister's transport is in that footage. I saw it burn. I am sorry, Admiral, truly. His voice was soft. But your sister's death can mean something. All those deaths can mean something. Not if we use them for revenge, but if we use them for justice. Commander, head of special operations, spoke for the first time. She was a tall woman with cold eyes and a reputation for impossible missions. What exactly are you proposing, General? Operation Silent Dawn brought up a new display. We do not fire a single shot at Council forces. Instead, we infiltrate their space. We make contact with resistance groups. We share technology, supplies, and most importantly, we share the truth. We become liberators, said slowly, not conquerors. Exactly. The Council expects us to attack. They are prepared for that. They have countermeasures, contingency plans, overwhelming force. But they are not prepared for this. They do not understand what humanity is truly capable of. Vice Admiral No shook his head. And what is that? Smiled. It was the same cold smile he had worn 3 days ago, but now there was something else in it. Something that looked almost like hope. Hope, he said. We are capable of hope, of inspiring others, of making them believe that tomorrow can be better than today. That is our greatest weapon. That is what the Council will never understand. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of the decision pressed down on all of them. This was not the war they had trained for. It was something entirely different. Admiral Park broke the silence. And if it doesn't work, if the Council finds out and destroys us anyway, then we die free, said simply. We die having tried something worthy, not as victims, not as slaves, as humans. He looked around the table at each of them. I am not ordering you to do this. This is not something I can command. Each of you must choose for yourself, but I believe in this. I believe in us. And I believe that we can change the galaxy, not by fighting their war, but by starting our own. One by one, the officers at the table nodded. Even Admiral Park, still burning with grief, gave his agreement. Felt something in his chest loosen slightly. It was not happiness. He did not think he would ever feel truly happy again, but it was something close. Satisfaction, perhaps, purpose. Then we begin, he said. Commander, I need your best stealth crews ready to deploy within 2 weeks. Lieutenant General, prepare a broadcast package with all the 7 footage. Doctor, identify our first targets, species most likely to respond to our message. Everyone moved at once. the room suddenly full of energy and purpose. Orders were given, plans were made. The machinery of humanity began to turn in a new direction. As the others worked, remained seated, watching, he thought about all the wars he had fought, all the battles he had won and lost. None of them had felt like this. This was different. This was not about killing enemies or conquering territory. This was about something much harder, changing minds, changing hearts, changing the future itself. He did not know if they would succeed. The odds were against them. The council was old and powerful and ruthless. But humanity was stubborn, humanity was creative, and humanity never ever gave up. The old general closed his eyes and let himself rest for just a moment. There was so much work ahead, so many challenges, so many risks. But for the first time since 7, he felt something other than despair. He felt ready. 6 months had passed since the massacre at 7, 6 months of silence, 6 months of waiting. The Galactic Council was confused. They had expected attacks by now. They had expected rage, violence, desperate strikes against their territory. Their fleets were positioned. Their defenses were ready. Their soldiers waited. But humanity did nothing. No ships crossed the border. No weapons were fired. No declarations of war were issued. The humans simply waited quietly, patiently. It made the council nervous. Far across the galaxy, in the cold darkness between stars, a small ship moved silently through space. It was called the Quiet Moon, and it was invisible to every sensor the council possessed. Captain stood at the helm, watching the stars drift past. He was a young man, barely 30 years old, with a serious face and careful eyes. Before the war, he had been a cargo pilot. Now he commanded humanity's most secret mission. "Captain," his navigator said, "we are approaching the system. Estimated arrival in 4 hours. Good, prepare the cargo." The cargo was not weapons or supplies. It was something much more dangerous. Truth. In the ship's hold, Sergeant No sat at a communications console. She was small and quiet, the kind of person who could disappear into a crowd. But her fingers were fast, and her mind was faster. She had spent 3 months encoding the 7 footage into formats that could be broadcast on any technology, from the most advanced council systems to the simplest village radio. "Sergeant," Captain said through the intercom, "status report." "Ready, sir. I have prepared 17 different broadcast packages. Short versions, long versions, versions with commentary in different languages. As soon as we reach range, I can have them playing on every screen in the system. Hold for my signal. We need to make contact with the resistance first." 4 was a mining world, rich in rare metals that the council needed for their warships. The workers there were beings, smaller cousins of the who ruled the council. For 3,000 years they had dug in the dark tunnels, extracting ore, living and dying in service to their masters. They had never known anything else. But lately, there had been whispers, stories of humans who refused to bow, rumors of a species that had been attacked and survived, questions that had never been asked before. Why did things have to be this way? The Quiet Moon landed on a small moon near 4, hiding in the shadow of a crater. A shuttle departed, carrying Captain and 2 others toward the planet's surface. They were met by a contact, a worker named 7, who had secretly communicated with human agents for months. He was small, barely reaching Captain's waist, with dull gray skin and tired eyes. "You came," 7 said. His voice was scratchy, damaged by years of breathing mining dust. "We did not think you would actually come." "We keep our promises," Captain said. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small device. Medical supplies, enough to treat 500 workers for respiratory disease. 7's eyes widened. His hands shook as he took the device. This is worth more than my entire hive earns in a year. Why would you give us this?" "Because you deserve it." Captain knelt down so he could look the small being in the eye. Because the Council has told you that you are worthless, that you exist only to serve. But that is a lie. Every life has value. Every person deserves dignity. Seven was silent for a long moment. Then slowly something changed in his face. It was subtle. His species did not show emotion the way humans did, but it was there. Hope. There are others like me, he said quietly. Thousands of us. We have talked about rebellion, but we were afraid. The Council is too powerful. They would crush us. Not if you are not alone, Captain stood up. We have contacted resistance groups on 11 other worlds. The of are ready. They are gathering weapons. And soon, the entire galaxy will see the truth about what the Council really is. That night, Sergeant No began her broadcast. The footage of Seven appeared on every screen on 4. In the mines, in the dormitories, in the feeding halls, everywhere, workers stopped what they were doing and watched. They saw Council ships destroying civilian transports. They saw children dying. They saw the commanders laughing as they gave the orders. And they saw the lies. The Council had told the galaxy that humans attacked first, but the footage proved otherwise. Timestamps, sensor logs, emergency signals, everything showed that Seven had been a massacre of innocents. Within hours, riots broke out in 3 mining sectors. Within days, production on 4 had dropped by 60%. Within weeks, the Council was forced to divert 3 warships to maintain order. And the quiet moon was already gone, moving to its next destination. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. On the water world the aquatic people had lived in servitude for generations, farming the deep oceans for Council food ships. When they saw the Seven footage, they began to sabotage their own harvests. If the Council would not feed humans, they would not feed the Council. On the industrial world workers walked away from factories that built Council warships. Production lines went silent. Assembly robots stood idle. The war machines that should have been used to crush humanity were never built. General received reports from all across the galaxy. He read them in his office late at night, alone, when no one could see the expression on his face. Pride, that was what he felt. Pride in humanity, pride in their allies, pride in the plan that was working better than he had dared to hope. Doctor brought him analysis one evening. The Council is frightened, she said. They do not understand what is happening. Their intelligence services report no human military movements, no attacks, no threats, but their empire is crumbling anyway. They built their power on fear, said. They never imagined someone might use hope instead. The High Command has demanded that the Council blockade Earth, cut off all human contact with the rest of the galaxy. Good. Doctor raised an eyebrow. Good. They are reacting. They are afraid. That means we are winning. The old general smiled. Let them blockade us. Let them think they are in control. Every ship they send to watch Earth is a ship that cannot suppress the rebellions we have started. He stood up and walked to his window. Outside, the sun was setting over Geneva. The sky was painted in shades of orange and red, beautiful and peaceful. My father used to tell me a story, said, about a small candle in a dark room. One candle does not seem like much, but in complete darkness, even a tiny flame can be seen from far away. And if that candle lights another candle and that one lights another, eventually the whole room is full of light. He turned back to Doctor. We are that first candle, Doctor. We did not start the biggest fire. We did not need to. We just had to show others that fire was possible. Far away, on a dozen worlds, people who had never met a human were beginning to believe that change was possible. They were beginning to fight, not because they were commanded to, but because they chose to. Because humanity had shown them that choice existed. And the Council, for the first time in 10,000 years, did not know what to do about it. In the great chamber on Prime, where decisions had been made for 10,000 years, The 12 species who ruled the galaxy shouted at each other like angry children. 3 of them had already withdrawn their support. 2 more were threatening to leave. High Commander stood at the center, his 4 arms raised for silence. His face showed no emotion, but inside he was seething with fury. "This is unacceptable," he roared. "We are the Council. We have ruled this galaxy since before these humans learned to make fire. We will not be challenged by insects and fish and slaves." "They have stopped all food shipments," one delegate reported. "Our colony worlds are running low on supplies." "The factories have produced no warships in 3 months," said another. "Our fleet replacement program has completely stopped. And the mining castes on 17 worlds are in open rebellion," a third added. "We do not have enough soldiers to fight them all." High Commander slammed his fist on the ancient table. "Then we will make examples. We will burn their worlds as we burned the human colony. We will teach them to fear us again." But the delegates looked at each other uneasily. That strategy had worked before. It had always worked before, but this time was different. "Commander," one of them said carefully, "the humans have not attacked us. Not once. If we destroy more colonies, we will look like murderers, not warriors. Our own citizens are beginning to question us." His eyes burned with hatred. "Then find the humans, find their secret agents, capture them, make them pay." But the humans were ghosts. They appeared, delivered their message, and vanished. Council intelligence had no idea where they came from or where they went. The war was not being fought with weapons. It was being fought with ideas. And the Council was losing. Far from the Great Chamber, in the outer reaches of space, something was happening that had never happened before. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Eastern Star, his flagship, watching the planet below. It was a small world, barely worth noticing on most maps, but to thousands of beings trapped on its surface, it was hell. Prime Labor Camp 17, a place where workers from conquered species were sent to die slowly, mining rare minerals for the Council's war machine. Conditions were brutal. Food was scarce. Medical care did not exist. The average life expectancy was 4 years. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "Council patrol ships are 15 minutes away. We need to move soon." Park nodded. "How many transports do we have on the surface?" 12, sir. Captain is leading the extraction team." 12 transports, 17,000 refugees, and 15 minutes to save them all. On the planet's surface, Commander moved through the camp like a shadow. Her special operations team had disabled the security systems in minutes, and now the liberation was happening faster than anyone had expected. "Move, everyone move," she shouted. Workers from a dozen species stumbled out of their barracks, confused and afraid. Many of them had been prisoners for so long that they had forgotten what freedom looked like. An old woman grabbed his arm. Her skin was gray with age and sickness. Her eyes were clouded. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" "We are humans," said, "and we are taking you home." The old woman stared at her. Then slowly tears began to flow from her clouded eyes. "Humans, we heard stories. We did not believe they were true." "They are true," gently guided her toward a transport, "all of them." One of the youngest members of the rescue team was Ensign. She was barely 22 years old, a shuttle pilot with more courage than experience. Her job was simple: fly in, load refugees, fly out. Do not engage. Do not fight. Just save as many as possible. Her shuttle was full. 200 beings crammed into a space designed for 50. The air was thick with fear and hope and the smell of unwashed bodies, but did not care. She cared only about the sky above her and the Council ships that were getting closer every second. "All shuttles, this is Admiral Park. Launch now. Do not wait for full capacity. Get our people out." His hands moved across the controls. The shuttle lifted off, groaning under its weight. Alarms flashed, too heavy, too slow, too dangerous. She ignored them all. Anti-aircraft fire erupted from the camp's automated defenses. His team had disabled most of them, but not all. Green plasma bolts streaked past the shuttle, close enough to feel the heat through the hull. "Come on," she whispered to her ship. "Come on, we can do this." A bolt struck her left engine. The shuttle shuddered. Warning lights screamed. But the engine held barely and pushed forward up through the atmosphere into the darkness of space where the Eastern Star waited. Behind her, 11 other shuttles followed. All of them made it. 17,000 refugees, free for the first time in years. When the last shuttle docked, Admiral Park ordered the fleet to jump to hyperspace. The Council patrol ships arrived 3 minutes too late, finding nothing but empty space and broken chains. High Commander received the news in his private chamber. For a long moment he was silent. Then he sent a message to Earth demanding an explanation. General's response was broadcast across the galaxy on every channel that the human resistance could access. "You asked why we do not fight. This is why. You expected us to become monsters like you, to kill and destroy and spread fear. But we chose a different path. We chose to save instead of kill, to free instead of enslave, to hope instead of hate. You asked for our surrender. You asked for our submission. You killed our children and expected us to break. But you made a mistake in your calculations. You assumed we fight only with weapons. Humanity fights with hope. And hope, Commander, is far more dangerous than any fleet." The message spread like fire across the stars. Species who had never heard of humanity began to search for information. What they found amazed them. On Tessa 3, a newly liberated world, Colonel led the first ground forces to land. But they did not come as conquerors. They came as helpers, building shelters, distributing food, treating the sick. The people who had expected occupation found friends instead. "We want to join you," the leader told Colonel. "We want to be part of your alliance." "We are not building an empire," Colonel explained. "We are building something else, a partnership, equals working together." The leader did not fully understand. Such a thing had never existed in the galaxy, but he wanted to learn. Back on the Eastern Star, Admiral Park sat alone in his quarters, looking at a photograph. It showed a young woman with a bright smile, standing in front of a classroom of children. His sister, gone forever. He had wanted revenge so badly. He still wanted it sometimes. The anger never fully went away. But today he had saved 17,000 lives. Somewhere among them was probably a teacher like. A person who would go home, rebuild their life, and teach children to read and dream. That was worth something. Maybe it was worth more than revenge. Admiral Park placed the photograph gently on his desk and closed his eyes. "I hope you are proud of me," he whispered to the empty room. Outside his window, the stars continued their silent journey across the endless night. And somewhere in that vastness, 47 species were beginning to believe that a better galaxy was possible. The breaking point had arrived. Now everything would change. 1 year had passed since the massacre at 7. 1 year of silence and shadows and hope. The great chamber on Prime looked different now. Where 12 species had once ruled the galaxy, only 5 remained. The others had withdrawn, fled, or been overthrown by their own people. Outside the chamber, representatives from 47 species waited. They were not supplicants. They were not slaves. They were delegates to a new assembly, one that had been built from the ashes of the old council. And at the center of it all stood an old man who could barely walk. General was 74 years old. His body was failing. His doctors had told him he should be in a hospital, resting, preparing for the end. Instead, he had insisted on making this journey across the galaxy to stand in the place where humanity's fate would be decided. Commander walked beside him, ready to catch him if he fell. Admiral Park followed close behind, along with Doctor and Captain Lee. They were the last survivors of the original War Council, the people who had planned and executed Operation Silent Dawn. "General," Admiral Park said quietly, "are you sure about this? You could address them via transmission." "No," shook his head slowly. "This moment deserves to be real. They need to see us, and we need to see them." They entered the great chamber together. Thousands of beings watched in silence as the small group of humans made their way to the central platform. Looked around at the faces, some familiar, some strange, some barely recognizable as faces at all. He saw species that had been enemies, species that had been victims, species that had been invisible to the old order, too small and weak to matter. Now they all mattered. "I was asked to speak today," began. His voice was weak, amplified by technology so that everyone could hear. "I was told that the galaxy wants to hear from humanity, that they want to understand what we did and why." He paused, gathering his strength. "When your council burned our colony 1 year ago, your leaders believed they understood humanity. They saw our ships, our weapons, our soldiers. They calculated our strength in tonnage and firepower, and they concluded that we were weak." A murmur went through the crowd. Some of the former council species shifted uncomfortably. "They were correct," smiled faintly. "In those terms we were weak. We are still weak. Any of your great fleets could reduce Earth to ashes. We have never pretended otherwise." He straightened his back, fighting against the pain in his body. "But you taught us something valuable in our grief. You reminded us that the greatest weapon humanity has ever possessed is not steel or fire. It is the simple, stubborn belief that tomorrow can be better than today, that cruelty is not strength, that the powerless can shake empires." His eyes swept across the chamber, meeting the gaze of delegates from dozens of worlds. "So we made you a promise, no more fighting, and we kept it. We did not fire a single shot at Council forces. We did not destroy your ships or burn your worlds. We simply remembered what we are, and we helped others remember what they could be." A delegate rose from her seat. She was the leader of the Meridian Resistance, the one who had ordered the food shipments stopped. "But why?" she asked. "Why help us? You could have focused on your own survival. You could have made deals with the Council to protect yourselves. Why risk everything for strangers?" Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because that is who we choose to be." He gestured to the human standing with him. Admiral Park lost his sister at 7. He wanted revenge more than anyone, but instead of taking it, he saved 17,000 refugees from a council labor camp. Commander led the team that freed them. Captain Lee coordinated our stealth missions. Doctor identified the species most likely to rise up. "We are not heroes," he continued. "We are ordinary people who made a choice. We chose hope over hate. We chose freedom over fear. We chose to fight, but to fight for something, not against something." Another delegate spoke, and from 4. His voice was rough and scratchy, but his words were clear. "My people worked in the mines for 3,000 years. We thought that was all we could ever be. Then your people came and showed us the truth. They gave us medicine. They gave us technology. They gave us something we had never had before." He paused. "They gave us dignity." Nodded. "That is all we have ever wanted to give. Not dominion, not control, just the simple idea that every being in this galaxy deserves to be free, to choose their own path, to build their own future." He turned to face the former council members, the ones who had ordered the massacre of 7. "I will not pretend to forgive what you did. 7 million of my people died because of your decision. Children, teachers, farmers, dreamers, they are gone and nothing will bring them back." His voice hardened. "But I will not spend the rest of my life hating you either. Hatred is a prison, and I choose to be free." He faced the full assembly once more. "This new galactic assembly is not our victory. It belongs to every species that refused to accept tyranny as the natural order. We simply lit the match. You provided the fire." Reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. It was a pen, an old-fashioned writing instrument that humans had used for thousands of years. This pen belonged to my father. He used it to sign the charter that created the United Earth government, ending centuries of war on our. He told me that the pen was mightier than the sword, that the power to create was greater than the power to destroy. He held it up for everyone to see. Today, I will use this pen to sign a new charter, the Galactic Charter of Free Species, not as humanity's leader, but as one citizen of a galaxy that has finally chosen to be free. He walked slowly to a table where the document waited. His hand shook as he wrote his name, but his signature was clear. One by one, delegates from 47 species came forward to add their names. The document grew longer and longer, filled with scripts and symbols from across the galaxy. When it was finished, turned back to the assembly. He was exhausted now, barely able to stand, but there was peace in his eyes. "No more fighting," he said softly, "only hope." 3 months later, General passed away in his home in Seoul. He was surrounded by family and friends, by colleagues and comrades who had shared his impossible dream. The galaxy mourned him as a hero. Admiral Park was given command of the new Joint Liberation Fleet, a combined force of ships from 50 different species. He named his flagship the. Its motto, inscribed in 17 languages, read, "No more fighting, only hope." 20 years later, the rebuilt colony of 7 became home to a new university. It was named after Park, the teacher who had died in the massacre, the one who had taught children to dream of the stars. The first class included students from 112 species. Among them was a young human woman named, the daughter of Ensign, who had once flown a damaged shuttle through enemy fire to save 400 lives. Was studying. She wanted to continue the work that General had started, building bridges between species, spreading hope across the stars. On her first day, she stood in the university courtyard, looking up at a statue of an old man holding a pen. "Thank you," she whispered to the silent stone. The stars shone above her, bright and beautiful and full of possibility. Somewhere out there, species who had once been enemies were working together, building a future that no one had ever imagined possible. Humanity had never become conquerors. They had become something far more dangerous to tyrants. They had become teachers. And the galaxy was finally ready to learn.